I'm really honored to have this opportunity to meet and speak with Delia Leung. Delia, how are you feeling today? How's your day going so far?
And how are you? Thanks for having me, Todd.
Oh,
So
thank you.
it's Hong Kong evening time. I just finished teaching two classes, one in a corporate company called Google, another one in my studio. It's a
Nice.
small group class that I offer Dharma Yoga regularly.
Amazing. I guess first two questions is you have your own yoga studio, correct?
Mm-hmm.
How long have you had your studio?
Oh, it's actually very unplanned. I set this up during pandemic, so I would say it's around 3 years now,
Yes.
and it's of a smaller scale, like a boutique studio size, which we normally have around 10 to 12 people that we can really dive in to have a deeper connections compared to bigger scales of classes.
Yeah, amazing. And then working for Google, did that mean you went to one of their office buildings in Hong Kong and their
Mm-hmm.
employees would show up and you would teach yoga? What is it like teaching yoga in your studio where you can focus on maybe some of the more spiritual aspects of yoga versus going into the corporate workspace? What sort of feeling do you get from each of those opportunities?
I think to be more specific, you're referring to the people who call themselves Googlers.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
they are more like tech savvy, talking about Gemini and AI all the time. So it's completely another language, which you can also imagine living in Hong Kong out there. Most of my offerings are both in Cantonese, the mother tongue that I have, and also in English, which I learned from Dharmaji. So when I will go into a workplace like Google, people would not expect any spiritual lineage or aspects of teachings, or some of the banks and law firms would pretty much expect we stay out from the spiritual work, which I completely understand. However, I feel like as a Dharma yogi coming back from the New York from time to time, it's always very important to plant the seed in everyone's mind and also the heart. There's a saying in Buddhist teaching that we have to learn the wisdom as well as the compassion point of view. So compassion means you're not really forcing into it. You're really engaging and also gauging how people feel before you have the skillful means, which is the very important tool accordingly to spread the word how Dharma Yoga is, what is spirituality like, and why meditation is important in day-to-day life.
Amazing. When you say that you learned English from Dharmaji, from Dharma Mitra, how do you mean? Because your English is so amazing. Surely you learned it as a child growing up, or do you literally mean you traveled to New York and then decided on,
Oh, no. What I mean is more specific on the English offering when I offer yoga aspects, or
understood,
of course, like the advanced teachers trainings that he hosts on regular basis.
understood.
And also, I would say teaching or offering yoga or pranayama or meditation offering in Cantonese and also in English is really, really different. In Cantonese or even in Mandarin in China, which I go from time to time, or in Taiwan, the receptive level is more, oh, Delia understand me. And Delia can really connect dot between my private life or the way how I'm brought up, my struggling is as a housewife or as a partner in a firm. Whereas in English, it's more like universal, it's more international. So I would say it's all about boiling down to the concept of skillful means again. Whoever comes in, there's no fixed formula when you share from your heart. And it really, really sometimes it's so beautiful that you can even communicate through your eyes.
Mm. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Good point. I do not, obviously, I do not understand Cantonese, but I would love hearing language. Would you be able to answer a question and respond in Cantonese just so we can all hear it?
Are you for real?
Yeah, actually, yeah, yeah. Yes,
Okay.
yeah. Can you tell me what your day was like and actually respond in Cantonese?
My day is like
Yeah,
on
like
today
today.
or on
Yeah,
a
yeah. Just like what your
today.
day. Yeah, just basic, like simple conversation. I'm just to hear it doesn't have to be long, but just a few sentences I'd love to hear.
That's funny. Now
May-
you're making me blush.
Well, maybe one of our listeners or one of your students, and at least we can celebrate a little bit about, hearing a little bit of diversity here. Yes, please.
Sure, sure。咁我今日就大概6點鐘起身啦。我通常都係6點鐘起身。咁我第一堂課咧都會係大部分係 private 嘅時間。咁 private class 啦，咁我去人哋嘅屋企度啦。咁佢係一個好靚好靚嘅老人家嚟嘅。佢今年73歲。咁咧我就 thanks for pretending that you understand。
Well, it's so fun. Oh my gosh. Well, Delia, I mean, before I, before I started, we hit record, I had made mention to you that I stay really far away from politics, and I'm really
Mhm.
trying to do that. But one thing that, like, one of the big things that's going on right now here in the US is that you probably maybe have heard, but we had an artist named Bad Bunny singing at
Mm,
the Super Bowl in Spanish, and everyone starts freaking out, like,
mm,
oh my gosh. And so I think, though, by listening to him and maybe not understanding, you can still understand. So
So
I agree
the
with you.
thing.
Like, yeah, do I understand every single word that you're saying? No, but the feeling and the tone, I think that
Mhm.
conveys a lot. And I like the way that you had made mention how we can communicate with our eyes, or there's other methods of communication. So
Sure.
thank
So,
you for obliging me. I appreciate that. I didn't mean to make you feel nervous or make you.
okay. So let me wrap up the question in
Yeah.
around like 30 seconds. So 我呢個係一個我好珍重嘅一個客人嚟嘅，咁佢已經同我練瑜伽練咗差唔多5年，係一個73歲嘅老人家。咁我差唔多每一朝早咧，我都係喺佢屋企度開始，然後有幾個 private sessions。咁去到今日咧，中間有一個好得意嘅環節咧，就係我哋下個禮拜係中國新年。咁我就同我爹哋一齊咧去辦年貨啦，同埋買桃花。咁最後咧，好似頭先我所講咧，就係我去咗 Google 啦，同埋我上咗一個6人嘅小組嘅課程。咁咧就而家就坐咗喺 Todd 嘅面前，就去享受同埋去接受佢嘅訪問啦。
Well, I want to come practice with you then.
Thank you. So the
Yes.
key focus on this answer was 2 points. First, I normally starting off with offering a 1 hour class with my student who is 73. So
Mm.
he and also she is a couple actually. It's a beautiful, beautiful couple, old people. So this is one of the only the house calls that I still do. So I go to the place and normally we start our class at 7 to 8 before they really start their time. And I really, really enjoy to age with them, put it this way. So I go in and witness a lot of surgeries they have, operations they have, and how the resilience level built up through yoga asanas, or even they came to my retreats one time. So which is really beautiful. It's more like a really, really deep, like family members. They are like my parents. And then I was also mentioning me and my dad went to a flower market. It's actually Chinese New Year next week. It's a very, very important day for both like Tibetan, Bhutanese, Chinese calendar, which is on the 17th of February. So we went into a nursery flower place to buy a huge peach and cherry blossom to decorate our house and ending up with sitting in front of you and having this interview with you.
Oh, that's awesome. I like the visual of you and your dad shopping and getting some plants together. That's amazing.
Mhm.
That's so cool. And I'm curious when you mentioned like the couple that you work with and being able to assist them almost like as a health advocate in a way, and that you're noticing that you're observing how the work that you're doing with them is revealing in their own personal lives. That's pretty amazing. What are some of your techniques? I know these can be difficult questions to answer because they're so broad,
Mm.
and but like what are some of the techniques that you're employing with them that you are noticing they are having tremendous benefit with?
Mm. I believe that the older one gets, the more things we have to peel off from the patterns in life. So the gentleman is actually a very experienced marathon runner. He joined even the first Tokyo and also the Singapore marathon. And coming into the second path of his life, he runs less. And of course, there would be like, oh, I wish I could go out and run again. His hips is really tight, his hamstring is horrendous. So, to be honest, to plug into what I learned completely from the standard chart that we have in Dharmaji's studio or in the home in the temple is almost impossible, right? So again, going back to the skillful means in Buddhist teaching, you have to be so surrendering every time, every morning that you see him. What is the condition that he is suffering, how he feels after he sleeps, his sleeping pattern, what is the cardiologist talking to him, how many glass of wines that he has to cut down. So it's more like a holistic package instead of only focusing on the style or the technique on the yoga mat.
Yeah.
So aging with them or to really plug into my common sense is something that I find is really a key in the practice and to grow old with them. And
Yeah.
of course, like the lungs and also the breath work also comes in a very, I would say is almost even more important than asana sometimes in their morning sessions. Breathing really helps them to age, and they also becomes more mindful and meditative as they live in busy cities like Hong Kong.
Yeah. Oh wow, amazing, Delia. I saw on your Instagram page that you have a bachelor's of science in psychology and a master's degree in Buddhist studies and or Buddhist philosophy. Can you talk a little bit about your journey from learning psychology and then going in this direction in masters? How are you employing those skill sets in your yoga teaching?
Sure. Um, don't forget, I actually have a main chart, like a main gap between psychology and Masters in Buddhist study in finance and also in law. So in between, I also did a degree in law school, coming
Whoa.
back to Hong Kong in finance. So, to sum up, long story short, I was in London for quite a few years to finish my psychology degree. And back then, I was really heavily interested in something which is now very, very popular topic, which is the cognitive neuroscience. So, me and also my lecturer and professor, I was so lucky to tag along in the research paper, and we talk about somatic body work in relation to long-term and short-term memory in the studies with a lot of ballerinas. So we went to, for example, like English National Ballet, Royal Ballet School to collect our data. And then we have, interestingly, we have a lot of scans, stickers, and also a lot of like MRI stickers on the head to really dive in to experiment and also to do some research on how they think internally when what is going on in the prefrontal cortex behind the amygdala and what is going on in the brain. And that I would say I can be quite nerdy on that sense. And I really like studying data and how this data can help in terms of our body movement at large.
Wow.
Then after that, I actually did not know what I wanted to do, although I wanted to really badly, desperately wanting to continue my studies as a researcher in London. However, universe took me, so I took a leap of faith. I went into law school and coming back with an opportunity to work in a law firm. Shortly, it was also in a very, I would say in a very drastic department, which is to handle cases in matrimonial aspects and trust and probate. And back then, I would say I was quite an empath. Every time when I was in courtroom, I would cry when a client cried, and I could not really understand and to be able to handle my own emotion when I saw them they're divorcing, drafting prenups. So I was telling myself, Okay, maybe let's take a break. Okay, if I really wanted to come back, I can always come back. So I did a quick switch, did something very unemotional on that aspect, which is on the trading floor. So I worked on a trading floor for quite some time.
Whoa,
Uh,
that's an
no,
amazing diverse background.
I don't know if it is amazing,
So
but
on the trading floor in Hong Kong at the
in
market?
Hong Kong.
Wow. And
To share a
now,
little bit more, I was working in Wells Fargo,
mm,
um, to trade a product called fixed income.
wow.
So I was there for around 4 to 5 years when I started to pick up yoga again. I stop and resume, starting off with ballet. So I did ballet for a long time. That's why my research was on ballerinas. I started with ballet movements since 4 years old. I did almost like 16 years of ballet training, almost went to a ballet school, but turned out I went on an academic path. And yoga is very autopilot. It's like okay, so I don't do ballet anymore. And in Hong Kong, yoga is coming to be, was coming, becoming more and more popular. So I went and started to really deep dive into practicing. But of course, that time it was more about after work, when I don't have to check my Bloomberg, then I go in and then to have a class, and I felt great, right? And the more I practice, I was like, hey, that is not only like that. There must be something that I'm missing, but I couldn't really articulate what that was until one year I met Dharmaji in New York. It was also by luck. I would say really, really, he chose me to come and see him without knowing exactly who he was. I was just like shopping in Soho, New York. I was happily eating my pasta, checking out Google Museum. And one day I was like, hey, maybe let's check it out. So I went into the shala and that was it. So I was sold and I never come back.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing, Delia. That's so cool. Wow. Incredible. What a diverse blend of professional skill, you know, like I mean, for some just to finish one like a psychology degree is like a major achievement, but to be able to bounce between psychology, to become a lawyer, to be working in trading, and then to fall in love with yoga. And I can obviously I can see how you're able to blend all these passions together in the sense of now that you're working with the corporate world, I would imagine that they would be you can speak their language, you understand the environment, you understand what type of stresses that they're experiencing from a personal experience. So then to be able to apply the yoga aspect, I would imagine that would be hugely valuable for them. What sort of feedback are you receiving from? I mean, I can kind of guess and imagine, but what kind of feedback are you receiving currently from your students? What are some of the big challenges that you're noticing they're facing, and how are you seeing yoga as a way for them to evolve and move forward?
I think Hong Kong is a very unique place. Um, we have all sorts of people internationally and all walks of life. I still remember the first time when I engaged a client who used to be, interestingly, my ex-client on trading floor. And then turned out he knew that I quit and then I studied in Dharma Yoga and coming back as a yoga teacher. And he went like, hey, let's reconnect. I want to be your existing client on the yoga mat and see, hey, what you can offer me. So I went to his place and I still remember that the way how he talked to me no longer was in his suit, no longer with his tie, no longer in his blazer. He was just very naked, sitting in front of me doing pranayama. He looked into my eyes, very carefully looking on how I demonstrate my Nadi Shodhana. And then he went like, oh my gosh, this is powerful. And I never would expect myself sitting, like when you're working on the trading floor as a sales, the client is always here and I'm always here. But when we are receiving each other's energy on the yoga mat on the floor, we are here, we're equal.
Mm, mm,
And the way how he was, it was so receptive that it really, really touched my heart. And finally, the word naked depicts the sensation on how much he trusted me, because been there, done that, he could really feel that I understand him. I'm not like a yogi coming out from a cave out of nowhere, but I actually really understand the stress level, the hormonal change, the way how he constantly had to fly in and out Hong Kong, different time zone, the struggles is. So, the way how he trusted me is beyond the way how he trusted me back then in banking. And these kind of real and raw connection, oh my gosh, is so priceless.
Wow.
And I could still vividly remember that scene when he finally really removed his mask. Like as a client, he always have to like, hey, I'm cool, okay? Hey, how much do you want to trade with me? Okay. But now he's like removing his mask, surrendering on the yoga mat. And the more that we engaged with each other, the more he shred. And almost every sessions that we had, it was a purification for him.
Mm. Wow, that's so cool. And I can see the similar thread in relation to your response with the work that you're doing with, say, the gentleman that you worked with today, that you said, I feel like it's removing layers. And then when you mentioned with this other particular practitioner, that feeling of letting go of the stress and coming into like the body and the experience of just, feeling good and letting all those defenses down, I can see the theme of what you're pointing out, which is really amazing because that is in essence one of the elements of yoga, isn't it? Just that letting go of all the defenses, masks that we're wearing. And I love that you mentioned the hierarchy of seeing each other eye to eye versus, you know, I'm subservient to you or I'm above
Mm,
you. Yeah, that's really incredible. What um
mm.
what have you learned? What would you say was some of the well, let me ask you this first. Did you grow up as a Buddhist?
No, I wasn't.
What was
I actually
your
went to a Christian school.
very cool. Amazing. And
Yeah.
then what was your first contact with Buddhist teaching and meditation?
Mm. My grandma was a Buddhist, so here and there I would hear her chant in the morning, incense at home, and also scriptures here and there. My mom is a professional Chinese calligrapher, so all the calligraphy that she writes every morning, on top of the smells of the ink, which wasn't really that pleasant, but it was funny and cute. All the scriptures that she copied mostly are sutras. So growing up in a household with this beautiful setting, I feel like maybe it's just my past life that I was, and also I'm meant to be. But
Yeah.
the first feeling on, hey, I would really love to learn more Buddhism, surprisingly, it was actually from Dharmaji. So the first session that when I went into his old shala, I went in, so many people in there. Everyone dressed up so humbly, stretching and doing warm up. I went in, I know no one. And he came in without even starting to om and chant, like how normally the yoga setting is in Hong Kong. He shared two concepts, which I still remember. The first concept was reincarnation, and the second concept was karma. Back then, I was still in banking, if you can plug the timeline right. And I was like, wow, this is something very different. In Hong Kong, fast paced, 60 minutes, we don't normally have 75 minutes class for your information. It was not enough for sure. But the 60 minutes class, there's no way for a teacher to share something beyond movement or somatic work on the yoga mat. But Dharmaji really took his time to really put the Dhammapada out, read a little bit, put on his glasses, and I don't know what happened to me. I just kept crying like crazy. And the person next to me, which is my friend, and he was like, wow, why are you crying? And also, I actually did not exactly remember what Damaji shared, but
Hmm.
I only remember that sensation wasn't unhappy or happy, but it's a pure bliss.
Yeah.
And that is why I continue to go back to his class until the day I fly back out to Hong Kong.
Yeah. Wow. It's a
And
great story, Delia. That's
the
amazing.
connection of a sharing, I felt like if you open your heart to yourself and if you really, really trust and cultivate time to look inside, the path is actually not as difficult as you think.
Mm.
And or the layman word to say is if you are vibing yourself, right? Or if you are becoming more authentic with your own self, it's right there. It's actually right there. So that was also the time when I was around 28, 29, starting to have this midlife crisis.
Mm.
And I started to ask myself, is banking really something that I can do for the rest of my life? And when I came back, the first day back from New York, my answer straight from my heart was a very, very solid no.
Yeah.
Not that I did not have a good team. I have an amazing team with me. My boss like me. I love my team. However, I felt like there was a higher purpose in my life that I have to pursue and start pursuing before it's too late. And that was the connection between Dharmaji sharing, meditation, mindfulness. And I felt like the ballet, the yoga, and also I used to play a lot of golf is very non-team player work, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's more like, okay, you do your yoga mat, you do your own yoga practice on your mat, you practice your plie, your pirouette in front of the mirror, you play your golf, even though you're playing with with a team of four, everything is just you and you. And this you and you, I actually underestimated how much I love this inner work between me and myself.
Mm.
And that is why I also, when I once I quit, I told myself, hey, it's time to really maybe do an academic, systematic way of understanding the Buddhist philosophy. I really enjoy the study of the concept of impermanence, the concept of non-self. Everything is about the same. It's exactly like what Dharmaji always shares, is we are the same. You are me, and you are me, and also me are you. Everyone is oneness, is one support each other to go home. And this is non-self concept in Buddhist teaching. And which is what is even more beautiful is I can really apply the teaching in Hong Kong University, which I did my master's in my sharing on the yoga mat. Taking out the religion, a lot of philosophical aspects are the same,
Yeah.
either in your head, in your brain, on your heart level, or on the asana level.
Yeah. Wow, Delia.
Mm.
Amazing. Incredible. I'm curious. I know when people are attempting to make a shift from working in the corporate world into being a yoga teacher or a coach on some level, they get really nervous, or we can get really nervous because one provides a lot of financial support, and sometimes the other might be a little questionable as to how that's going to go. Have you found that because you're pursuing your passion and you've put so much dedicated study and time into actually doing academic work as well as the on the mat work, that you're able to be just as successful, if not more successful, in following your passion?
Mm, it comes in hand, right? Although I'm very devoted on continuous studying on the mat or in school, however, I would say I was still a little girl that I got nervous about financial situation. So the moment I still remember when I handed back back in the days we call that thing called BlackBerry, right?
Yeah.
So when I handed in that BlackBerry to my secretary and when the door slammed in front of me, I wasn't able to go back in again. I was like, oh my God,
Oh, wow. We're
this
doing
is
this. Yeah.
it. I still remember I peeped up. There's a layer of glass, so it's not a solid door. So there was a layer of transparent glass at the top. I saw the clock of Korean time, Japan time, New York, London time, Hong Kong time. Those times, I tell you, Todd, they were no longer relevant to my life.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like that insight.
And
That's, yeah.
and even worse, the
Mm.
next morning when I got up, normally I got up at 6 to read through what's going well with a 13 hours or 12 hours of time difference between New York. We have to study a little bit overnight on what's going on in the US. those news also were no longer relevant in my life. So I woke up, I slowly walked down to a cafe, eating breakfast by myself. I was like, I felt really lonely and empty.
Yeah.
And fast forward 1 month after, oh my gosh, there was no salary in my banking system, in my saving bank. What am I gonna do? So, all these doubts really, really start bubbling inside me, but I don't know why, but there was just this very strong force to make me continue to move forward
Yeah.
and to tell myself, hey, this is just temporary fear or insecurity
Yeah.
or the labeling the society should have given you. But the should have given is also is also a projection on your mind, right?
Yeah.
And this is also something that I have to work on a lot internally to anchor myself at the beginning stage of my offering in yoga.
Yeah. Good point, Delia. Great point. When what is the I've heard, I've never been to Hong Kong and I've always wanted to go. I think what to me seems so intriguing when I hear about the height of buildings and that there's walkways in between each building, and people have told me that it's possible to like just be within one building all day long and never actually be on the on the ground or the earth. I mean, you're always on the earth, I guess, because if you're in a building, you're still on the earth because it's part of the earth to build the building. But I'm curious, but then when I see like drone footage of or pullback footage of like the beauty of the mountains and the nature around the city, can you just talk a little bit about what it's like to live in Hong Kong in a busy city, and how do you ground yourself into the natural beauty of planet Earth as well?
Mm. Um, Going back to one example I remember Damaji gave us. So the first teacher's training that I had with him, I saw sirens and ambulance sound constantly outside in the old temple. And Damaji looked at me and said, hey, welcome to New York. You chose New York to open your studio. Similarly, I chose Hong Kong to have my birth and also to have my life. Hong Kong is so tiny compared to any other cities in the US, any other cities in Europe, but it gives me so condensed context in life that force everyone or force me to balance the yin and the yang, right? And I would say the past life that I had in banking was very yang, and now coming back to slowing down a little bit and really understand, hey, Hong Kong is a place that you can also make space for yourself to breathe. And that skill set, you need to keep exploring every day, especially every day is different. And pandemic, before pandemic and after pandemic, Hong Kong has already changed, also has changed a lot too. Um, so this space provides a beautiful setup and also background for me to play around like a museum. I always find everyone's life is like coming here to play a computer game. How many cookie points that you collect or how many bad points that you collect is of free will, is of your own choice. Right. So when you look out from the window, you're completely correct. We have this crazy skylines. We have different bridges to connect from one building to another. It's almost like a SimCity back in the old days in computer game. But if you want to level up from level one to level two, you have to cultivate this level of awareness, which is, I would say, by far, it can be much, much more difficult to collect these brownie points or to level up yourself compared to other cities. And
Mm,
I chose to come to Hong Kong to live from my past life. This is my homework, and this is something that I have to learn every day to cultivate awareness. One layer deeper and one layer deeper every day, bit by bit. Sometimes you go backwards, sometimes you move forward, but constantly this trend should go upward, right? You have to constantly go upward in order to really feel, hey, this breath, this exhale is more connected to yourself. So when you look at your nature, I hike all the time. Actually, in Hong Kong, there are so many hiking scenes. I hopefully one day I can also host you in Hong Kong. But these hiking scenes are amazing that allows us to very fast to go into nature, maybe a couple of hours and coming back. It's more almost like recharging,
Yeah.
like a power bank.
Yeah. Wow. I love hearing your breakdown of the concept of like living in a museum. That's a really cool idea. I love that. I love that you brought up looking at life as if you are, as we are, in some sort of virtual game, which is really, once that idea, once it started to click into my mind a little bit more, and it made a little more sense to me because when I first heard that concept, I feel like I first heard that concept from Paramahansa Yogananda because I was reading some of
Mm,
Yogananda's work and he was talking about us as humans are in a movie, so to speak. And just like we can sit down in a theater and look at the light projecting onto the screen, that's not real in a
mm,
sense. Like the light and the image is just a made up film. And therefore, our life is kind of like the same thing, a movie, and we are the actor in the movie. And so when I first heard that, I thought, whoa, never really looked at it like that. Okay. And then I feel like the more I try to visualize life that we are in some sort of simulation, that it kind of makes sense. So I'm really glad that you brought up like the tokens, the leveling up of awareness too. And I think that's really interesting how you brought up like maybe if there are different levels and we are attempting to bring our awareness up to a different level. So I guess my question is, do you feel that there is another level that you would like to open your awareness into? And what sort of strategy and or non-strategy are you employing to help facilitate that opening?
mm. That's a very beautiful question, by the way.
Thank
So
you.
I was hosting a few monks from Bhutan last week. I was also very lucky that I got arranged an appointment to meet His Holiness Karmapa a few days ago. So every time when I have encounters with monks or nuns, normally I greet them with one line, which is "Welcome back to the Maya, welcome back to the illusion," because this is the
Yeah.
game, right?
Oh,
You
wow.
are out of the game, but welcome
Do,
back to our
do, do,
horrendous or more
well,
messy life.
what type of reaction do they give? Do they laugh? Do they
They
smile? Do
laugh
they just
so
bow?
bad.
Do they? Yeah.
They laugh so bad with like bowing and
Welcome
also
back to the
shaking hands
Maya.
sometimes.
I love that. All right. That's a great way to
Well,
say it.
welcome,
Yeah.
welcome back to the illusion. And sadly, you have to meet a person called Delia, right?
Well, that's humble. That's a very humble. That's a that's a great introduction. I gotta. All right, I'll remember that. Thank you, Delia.
And the awareness level either is closed or open. I don't have a strategy. I'm very honored and lucky enough to I have two, how would you call it, like a two or three baskets of people. One is like yogis, one are more like worldly people, laymen, like my parents, my siblings, or yourself. Another basket is monks and nuns, which are the monastic people, right? So I started to have a lot of friends or true friends. Sometimes you'll be surprised the connection and friendship are much deeper compared to the people that I met like 30 years ago. And when I was meeting them in university, talking to them, they nourish me or almost like massaging my head in a very meditative way. And this kind of awareness level is so pure. We're just casually talking random things on metro or talking random things on the dining table or a vegan diet or a juice, whatever that is, those awareness level can be cultivated anytime, anywhere. So these three baskets of people really support me as a system, non-linear, I would say, but in a progressive way. As long as I'm aware I am having this awareness, I think this is suffice already.
Mm, great
Mm.
answer. Great answer. Love that.
Thank you.
I haven't really thought of I like the way you put the three baskets. That's a cool, and it's interesting to delineate the yogis,
Mm.
and the monastics. Do you see, and then the lay, the and I'm
Well,
gathering,
technically everyone is the same, but
yeah,
the reason why I plot these people in three baskets is the way of how they perceive life
mhm,
or the way
yeah,
of living is just different, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
some eat everything, and some within even the Buddhists, some eat meat, some love to eat meat because of situational issues like the Tibetan, they eat yak, right? And Japanese Buddhists, they still eat fish and they can drink sometimes. Whereas the yogis, they're like strict, very strict sattvic diet or sattvic way of living. These are all like the way of living or the style of how they want to perceive life. But ultimately, we are all the same.
yeah, yeah,
Another example to perceive how you process awareness is the yogis normally we process from the chakra system or the way how we cultivate the quality of the breath. Whereas the Buddhists, we talk so much, so much about the prana, which is the prana spells as Prajna, which is the definition of the wisdom. And the wisdom and the compassion, they have to come hand in hand. It's like two wings of a bird. Without one is also not be able for a bird to fly. And if you're too wise, but you don't have the skillful means, or if you don't have the compassion, it's also hard to really cultivate the Buddhist teaching. It's hard to talk to people. And similarly, if you have too much compassion and with no wisdom or the right mindfulness concept, you're also somewhat handicapped, right? You may be overflooding and the loss of self-care or the loss of something, and you ultimately will hurt yourself without even knowing. So they talk about and perceive life in the concept of impermanence. Nothing is stable. Nothing is permanent here. And when you were mentioning the level up in like a SimCity, like a gaming thing, um, we are just coming back to the world in different form and different name. So the name and the form is also something that Buddhists care so much because everyone is ultimately the same, but we are just of different name, different form,
yeah,
different country,
yeah.
different shape.
When we hear, thank you, that's amazing. When we hear, if you really want to test your yoga, spend the holidays with your family. And or this idea that like the amount of growth that can occur through interaction with the basket of folks that are our friends, our family, that are all working as householders. Do you, and obviously sometimes we look to the monastic or the yogi for the wisdom. And when we have this, I believe maybe a false concept in our mind that interacting with the householder is then just the mundane, and there's maybe I won't get as much wisdom from that. But would you agree with me in that there's just as much to learn from all of our householder friends? And can you talk a little bit about the daily struggle, but the lessons that you feel like you gain from that camaraderie and that community?
No, totally. I would say householders are even better teachers sometimes. In monastic settings, they follow a routine. They wake up at 4:30. They have to do their morning homework. So it's more standardized, whereas they are just trying to not to make mistakes sometimes, rituals on different days they have to perform
Mm,
some ceremonies and rituals. They have to do the puja in a certain way or buy so many flowers in a certain on a certain days. So those are, I would say, the wisdom that I receive from them is more through, of course, it's through observation of the action, but it's more through the sharing on just casually in a temple or outside of a doorstep. Whereas householders, oh my gosh, they are not like I'm here and Delia is here. It's more like we are equal, right? So every single conversation carries energy. There are vibrations in the conversation. Either they are the so-called lower or the higher than you, they are still your great teachers. That's why I would say coming from a householder, um, I learned way more from just living like a normal life.
Hmm. Amazing. Yes. Great insights. Love it, Delia. Oh my gosh, how cool. I I'm curious what when you well, I saw that you're offering retreat and coming up in Bhutan, and I here in the States we'll see articles, and I'm sure globally people see articles that say the people in Bhutan have that there's the most amount of happiness. I mean, I know it'd be hard to maybe measure happiness, and but I guess they have some sort of metric for saying that the people in Bhutan are happier than everybody else around the world. Can you talk a little bit about what I'm guessing you've been to Bhutan? Let me ask you that. Have you been to Bhutan before?
Last year I've been there 3 times.
Nice, amazing. And you're getting ready to go again and host a retreat. So I'm curious, can you talk a little bit about why you think the Bhutanese, is that the right way? I don't even, I just made that. I don't know if that's a
It is,
proper
it
way to say.
is.
Okay, thank you. I hope we get that right. Is there, can you talk a little bit about why you think the Bhutanese might be more happy than me over here in Florida? Like
Mm.
I know that's a tricky question, but I'm just I would love to hear more about just from culturally, and you get a chance to travel there. I've never been. I would just love to hear your thoughts.
Mm. Internationally, there is a matrix on talking about how to measure the level of happiness. Interestingly, Bhutan is different, so the matrix is different. If I remember correctly, there are 33 parameters to talk about the level of happiness there. I actually know the person who founded this concept, and I
Wow.
was so lucky to have a meal with him.
Wow. And there's
He
actually
is
33 different metrics that they're gauging, and they study each
he,
culture and then try to come up
yeah,
with it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And when I was listening to, so I went back last November after my retreat in October. There was actually beautifully, there were a few Dharma yogis from New York coming in and to also share their energy with me. And when I went back in November, it was actually the king's birthday. So as a foreigner, I did not understand the speech, but I was like, why is he making a speech for like an hour long? And so I asked the person next to me, and he said, you know what? He's talking about the devotion on not cutting a tree. Okay. So then I slowly, slowly understand cutting a tree, which is the concept of sustainability in Western countries. He can just go on and on forever and ever. And the way how he emphasizes we have to help each other, and the way how he sponsors everyone in Bhutan to come to a Buddhist ritual. We call it the Kala Chakra initiation. All the meals were free, and the way how they pass on the lunch one by one when I saw it, and how they just, for example, when you step off and to excuse yourself to washroom, and then how they guard your handbags, those little things. Oh my gosh, I never really seen this in my life.
Wow.
Imagine when you're
Yeah.
in some other countries, you may think, pickpocket is a very nice action time, right?
Right.
Or let's grab 2 bowls of rice, and I don't care about whether the person next to me have enough rice, but they really, really treat everyone, one another, as a real family member, and including the king. I saw him walking around doing a little, how would you call it? Like a little tour around the audience. So he actually saw me. I was the one and only person who wasn't in red. Okay, you can imagine. So a sea of
No,
red,
no one gave you the memo? No.
right? I
Yeah.
also did not shave my hair. So I missed 2 memos. And also embarrassingly, I was in green. Okay. So he saw me, the sea of red. There
What
was
does the green represent?
nothing. I, I, I
I
just
didn't know if there I didn't know if you found out later that like green meant I'm a hugely disrespectful person and I don't know.
So he pointed at me and said, "Hey, I love the green on you." So next to me, there was a granny. Sure, I couldn't communicate with him. She was a Bhutanese coming out from. Apparently, she's from 10 or 11 hours car ride on the east side of Bhutan on purpose. She's just coming here for the initiation. And she sat next to me, and then the king would just like hold onto her shoulder, massage on her shoulder as if she was her grandma or an old auntie or something. So this little gesture, you see they communicate not only through doctrine or methodology or something that you have to comply with, but it's real deal. They are really demonstrating every day, every breath, or the way how they offer helps to one another. It is so raw. Or even lining up in the toilet, you can see everyone is like helping each other on day-to-day basis.
Wow.
So I would say the matrix of how to define happiness is, although I'm not an ambassador of Bhutan, but I would really highly recommend everyone should go and check this place out.
Wow.
And by law, they also have to guard. I think it's 70% of land has to be forestry. So the forest and nature is pretty much everywhere. And of course, the Buddhist teaching is the main key religion in the country. Even though if you're not a Buddhist, it's also okay. I would say sometimes the philosophy behind a religion is even more precious for everyone to learn.
Oh, that sounds amazing, Delia. That's a great explanation. I really appreciate that. I feel like as you were talking about that, I had recently read about the traditions in India of the Kashmiri Shaiva Tantra philosophy and the way they were relating the societal structure and how the thinking process of the entire community is just so vastly unique compared
Mm,
to the structure that we're focused on with just like our current commerce is just amazing to me. So to hear you talk about that, that's still existing on a level in Bhutan, and the way you explained how you could feel so secure and happy, like you said, like I'm at the buffet and I'm gonna get all the food on my plate because I gotta get more, and I don't care if you have it. Versus here, do you want my? Here's some extra. That's what a
um,
shift in thinking, what a shift um in being. Well, then how do you see I mean, I know this is maybe I can ask you one more question. I want to be respectful of your time, and thank you so much, Deli. I really enjoy this. I'm
of
so
course.
grateful to have this opportunity. Is could that vibration extend out into a wider sphere around the globe, or does it need to feel to stay special and out of the normal kind of wild stuff going on? Do you know what I mean? Like, I guess, like the way that you said 70% of the land is being preserved for nature, and therefore the appreciation of nature creates this sort of energy of like, okay, let's preserve this so we'll have a space to go and reflect in, and let's maintain some sort of harmony and balance there. And in a world where consumption is the sort of deity that we're feeding all day long, it seems like maybe will one ever outweigh the other, or maybe the yin and the yang, the balance of the two will always remain. Will the yin get a little stronger? Maybe could we have more of a
Mm,
Bhutanese life over here? Could we have more?
mm,
I wonder if do you see that possibility? I always ask people this because I hear so many different answers, and I'm
mm.
curious what just where you're thinking along these lines.
I feel like on top of Bhutan, after pandemic, everyone is talking about the concept of vulnerability, right? And vulnerability is getting more and more powerful as we speak and as everyday sharing. And something that I really like Bhutan or even in Hong Kong, wherever you study, especially in the studies in Buddhism, there's a concept which is very important, is the concept of discernment. So don't, instead of blindly believe in something that a monk says to you or a guru or a teacher says to you, you have to constantly discern and ask questions, right? And this is very powerful because ultimately you also want to, this is your life and you have to own your own power to be authority as one's life. And to further elaborate and to answer your question, definitely things can coexist in internationally. And this is also the beauty of how humanity works. Everyone is the same in the concept of you being at where you are, I'm being at where I am. We're at least planting some good seeds and doing some good deed. And our we can only do so much on day-to-day basis. But ultimately, your sharing, for example, the podcast that you've been hosting, and my sharing here can definitely affects one and another, or on some level which is higher vibration or lower vibration, and without seed, without looking too much into the seed, or like the slogan in Nike, just do it and don't ask too many questions, definitely is the way to go, you know. And sometimes working with a lot of Hong Kong Olympians, athletes, representative, they constantly look at the PB, which is the personal best,
Mm.
trying to constantly be as competitive as they can. But ultimately, I remember in 2018, I was very, very lucky enough to host Kipchoge from Kenya, which was the fastest runner in the world. So we brought him together with his team called NN Running, also sponsored fully by Nike, and also with the Asia Pacific team and the global team of the Nike company. We had a meeting before his arrival and asked, "Hey, Delia, I would like to have you to lead the session this time, this year when he was touring in Asia Pacific. Where would you like to bring?" So completely out of the box, I was like, "Okay, let's bring him to this monastery." And everyone was like, "What?
What?
You're not
Yeah.
bringing him to a park or a track field." And I'm like, "Hey, this is Hong Kong. Let's do something very local, okay?" So we really had intensive and comprehensive meetings with the monastery, letting the foundation knows our vision, why we think running and meditation can actually link, why meditation and competition can actually somewhat link and also dislinked or unlinked. And finally, they said yes. And I was like, yes, okay, so let's do it. So we all gathered at 4 a.m. in the monastery, and I led a gentle breathing and meditation session after, no, before the run. So I did not join the running, but the runners ran. And after running, interestingly, and that leads to something I wanted to share on meditation, Kipchoge came to me with quite broken English, okay, from Kenya. And also, I was also very nervous. I was like starstruck. So both of us were quite nervous. And then he said, "Hey, I think you're the one and only Nike yoga trainer or Nike trainer that does not wear any watch, okay? No watch, you can imagine like Garmin, Apple Watch, or whatever, that tools or technology that check your HRV or your VO2 or your heart rate or anything. So how does that work for you? And why and why not, right? So I said to him, you know what? Number one, all these devices really got into my way when I do Pinchamayurasana, okay, or do
Yeah.
any form of
Yeah.
asana. And he was like, what is a Pinchamayurasana?" But I was like, doesn't matter, okay? It just gets into my way on my mat. And number two, it's also a form of distraction. Numbers, when we are too lucky and too spoiled in countries or cities like Hong Kong, we are constantly get fed into so many numbers and device. And to check, do you sleep well? Do you sleep not well? And where is your number? How are you going to perform better? But ultimately, he said, "You're right, Delia. You know what? Every time when just before my race, I sat at the corner of my bed in any hotel, the bedroom that I was staying, and the last 15 minutes is always dedicated to meditation.
Mm,
Because ultimately, every single competition is all about the mind. And it's not the device. You kind of already know your performance and how you're gonna be like, right? And sometimes this device, I'm not saying that these are not good. Completely, they are good. I also actually wearing one right now. But what I'm saying is the attachment, the concept of attachment, if you don't get a strike a good balance between attaching and non-attaching, it can be too much sometimes,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you also
Yeah.
lost the judgment on your own body sensation.
Yes.
Mm.
Great point, Delia. Wow. I'm so thankful. I feel like I want to keep talking to you for the rest of the day today, but it's probably getting late there. And I just really, really appreciate it. It's been such a pleasure. Your gift of communication and the tone of your voice and your intellect and your ability to convey your ideas is really powerful. It's really refreshing, and I'm so grateful to have this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's really kind of you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Delia.
for having me.
Well, I look forward. I hope I can come to Bhutan on your retreat. That looks absolutely amazing. And oh yeah, before I'm gonna let everybody know in the intro and they can find your handle. But if everyone goes and follows you on Instagram at Delia.Indra Yoga, they can find you and send you a message and check in and see about your retreats.
Thank you so much, Todd, for
Thank
having me on your
thank you.
platform.
Thank you.
Thank you.